The massive crystalline chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with anticipation, and though buzzed might be the wrong word since half the species present communicated through bioluminescent flashes, electromagnetic pulses, or in the case of the methane breathers, interpretive gas emissions. Today's speaker, however, preferred the old-fashioned approach of vocal superiority. Dr. Zeph'rak adjusted his 7 spectacles with obvious self-importance, his purple tentacles arranging his research tablets in what he clearly believed was an impressive display. The renowned xenobiologist from Kepler 442 billion had requested this emergency session, claiming he had solved one of the galaxy's greatest mysteries. Esteemed colleagues, Zeph'rak began, his voice carrying that particular tone reserved for academics who believe they've just reinvented the wheel. I have spent the last 3 cycles conducting exhaustive research into the origins of the species known as humans. He pronounced the word like it left a bad taste in his mouth, which, given his species' tendency to taste-test everything through their skin, might have been literal. Commander XLA, a battle-scarred veteran from the Regal system, leaned forward in her hover chair. Her 6 arms were crossed in what could only be described as professional skepticism. Yet to the point, tentacle brain. We've got 3 border disputes and a trade war to settle before the solar cycle ends. Scholar Quinn Vell, whose crystalline form caught the chamber's light and scattered it into prismatic patterns, chimed like wind through glass bottles. Now, Commander. Dr. Zeph'rak's research into human biology has been fascinating, if not entirely believable. Ambassador Rothmar from the Tau Ceti Confederation simply gurgled, which his translator rendered as, "This should be entertaining." Zeph'rak's eye stalks swiveled dramatically. Entertaining? My dear Ambassador, what I'm about to present will fundamentally challenge everything we thought we knew about evolution, survival, and the very nature of biological possibility. He paused for effect, clearly expecting gasps. When none came, he continued anyway. After extensive analysis, I can definitively prove that humans are not, and I repeat, not a naturally evolved species. The chamber fell silent, except for the ambient hum of life support systems and Ambassador Rothmar's occasional digestive bubbling. They are, Zeph'rak declared with theatrical flourish, artificially enhanced super soldiers, was created by some unknown advanced civilization and placed on that nightmare planet they call Earth as either an experiment, punishment, or perhaps both. Zeph'rak activated his holographic display with a flourish that would have made a stage magician proud. 3-dimensional models of human anatomy rotated slowly in the air, each organ highlighted in what he probably thought were ominous colors. Observe, if you will, the first piece of evidence, he announced, pointing a tentacle at a spinning skeletal system. Human bone regeneration. When these creatures suffer fractures, their bones do not simply heal. Oh no, that would be far too mundane for a naturally evolved species. His voice dripped with sarcasm thick enough to pour over pancakes. Instead, the repaired bone becomes stronger than the original. Stronger. As if their bodies are equipped with some sort of adaptive engineering protocol. Scholar Quinn Vell's crystalline form flickered with what might have been nervous energy. That does seem unusual. Unusual. Zeph'rak's eye stalks practically vibrated with indignation. My dear scholar, unusual is finding a species that can photosynthesize through their ears. This is biological impossibility masquerading as evolution. He gestured wildly at the display. No species develops a healing system that improves upon the original design unless someone programmed it to do so. Commander Thexley shifted uncomfortably, her battle scars suddenly feeling less impressive. What else have you found? Oh, I am just getting started, Zeph'rak replied with the enthusiasm of someone about to ruin everyone's day. The display changed to show a weather pattern that made several council members recoil. Behold, the human homeworld's atmospheric precipitation. Water that falls from the sky with enough acidity to dissolve metal, yet humans stand in it voluntarily. They call it rain, and some of them actually enjoy it. Ambassador Rothmar gurgled something that translated to, "That cannot be accurate." I assure you it is, Zeph'rak continued, clearly relishing the shocked reactions. But wait. Wait. There is more. Human temperature regulation operates across a range that would be lethal to most civilized species. They function normally in temperatures that would freeze Rigelian blood or boil Centaurian plasma. Some of them seek out these extreme conditions for what they call recreation. The display shifted again, showing thermal readings that made the assembled delegates unconsciously adjust their environmental suits. And perhaps most disturbing of all, Zeph'rak's voice dropped to what he probably considered a dramatic whisper, their pain tolerance. I have documented cases of humans continuing to function with injuries that would send any reasonable species into immediate shock. Broken bones, torn muscles, punctured organs, and they simply keep going. Scholar Quinn Vell's glow dimmed considerably. That sounds like military conditioning. Exactly. Zeph'rak's tentacles writhed with excitement. No natural evolutionary process would produce creatures capable of operating through trauma that would incapacitate a Gorvalian battle mech. These beings are clearly designed for warfare on a scale that defies comprehension. Commander Thex LA, who had survived 3 interstellar conflicts and 2 assassination attempts, was beginning to look distinctly uncomfortable. Are you suggesting they are all soldiers? I am suggesting they are all weapons, Zeph'rak replied ominously. Biological weapons designed to survive and thrive in conditions that would constitute genocide for any other species. The question is not whether they are artificial. The question is who created them and why they were abandoned on that death world. The holographic display shifted to show a rotating blue-green planet, and immediately half the council members activated their emergency oxygen supplies. Earth hung in the artificial space like a beautiful, deadly jewel, its swirling white clouds hiding horrors that Zeph'rak was all too eager to reveal. Behold, he announced with the glee of someone about to describe their favorite nightmare, the so-called homeworld of humanity. I say so-called because no planet naturally occurring in the universe could possibly be this hostile to life. Commander Thex LA leaned forward, squinting at the planetary display. It looks almost pleasant from orbit. Ah, yes, the perfect trap. Zeph'rak's eye stalks swiveled knowingly. Observe what happens when we examine the planetary surface in detail. The image zoomed in, revealing geological features that made several delegates reach for their anxiety medications. The entire planetary crust is broken into massive fragments they call tectonic plates, Zeph'rak explained with scientific horror. These plates constantly move, grinding against each other, creating what humans casually refer to as earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Entire cities are regularly destroyed by these geological tantrums, yet humans simply rebuild in the exact same locations. Scholar Quinn Vell's crystalline form flickered nervously. That seems counterproductive to survival. Unless Zeph'rak paused dramatically, they were designed to adapt to constant environmental destruction. But wait, the geological instability is merely the beginning of this world's engineered hostility. The display shifted to show swirling atmospheric phenomena that resembled cosmic-scale blenders. Hurricanes, Zeph'rak announced like he was introducing a war criminal. Atmospheric disturbances with wind speeds exceeding 200 kilometers per hour, spawning smaller rotating destruction columns called tornadoes that can level entire settlements in minutes. Ambassador Rothmar's translation device sputtered before managing. How do they survive such atmospheric violence? They do not merely survive it. Zeph'rak's voice rose with incredulous disbelief. They have developed recreational activities around it. Some humans actively seek out these death storms to observe them at close range. They call it storm chasing, as if courting atmospheric annihilation were a hobby. The assembled delegates exchanged glances that clearly communicated a shared thought. These humans were obviously insane. But atmospheric warfare is child's play compared to the biological threats, Zeph'rak continued, warming to his subject like a fire warming to dry wood. The display now showed various Earth fauna, each more terrifying than the last. Observe the predators that evolved specifically to hunt humans. Massive fanged beasts, weighing several hundred kilograms, equipped with retractable claws designed for rending flesh. And Commander Thex LA, who had faced battle-hardened enemy soldiers without flinching, visibly shuddered at the image of a grizzly bear. Apex hunters with night vision and silent movement capabilities, Zeph'rak gestured to images of big cats. Serpentine creatures that inject neurotoxins capable of shutting down nervous systems within minutes. Arachnids whose bite causes tissue necrosis and organ failure. Surely, Scholar Quinn Vell chimed hopefully, the microscopic environment must be more benign? Zeph'rak's laugh could have curdled milk across 3 star systems. Microscopic? Oh, my crystalline colleague, the microscopic realm is where Earth's true malevolence reveals itself. The display zoomed to cellular level, showing writhing bacterial forms and viral structures that looked like tiny alien warships. Billions of microscopic predators, he announced with flourish. Bacteria that consume flesh from the inside out. Viruses that hijack cellular machinery to reproduce themselves. Parasites that literally eat their hosts alive from within. The entire planet is a biological warfare laboratory operating at every conceivable scale. The council chamber had grown uncomfortably quiet except for the sound of several members hyperventilating into their breathing apparatus. No naturally occurring world could possibly contain this concentration of lethal threats, Zeph'rak concluded triumphantly. Earth is clearly an artificially constructed testing facility, designed to create the ultimate biological weapons through constant exposure to every form of environmental hostility imaginable. Ambassador Rothmar gurgled weakly, and humans actually live there voluntarily? Not only do they live there, Zeph'rak replied with obvious relish, they refuse to leave. Zeph'rak paused to let that disturbing revelation sink in before continuing his presentation with renewed enthusiasm. The holographic display now showed various human activities that made the assembled council members question whether they were witnessing documentary footage or elaborate science fiction. Now we arrive at the most compelling evidence of artificial enhancement, he announced, his tentacles arranging themselves into what could only be described as a gesture of academic smugness. Human behavioral responses to environmental threats demonstrate programming so sophisticated that it borders on the absurd. The display showed images of humans interacting with various Earth creatures, and Commander ThexLA immediately reached for her weapon before remembering she was watching a hologram. Observe their response to dangerous predators, Zeph'rak continued. Do they flee? Do they hide? Do they develop better weapons? No. They engage in what they call pack bonding with the very creatures designed to kill them. The images showed humans petting massive canines with teeth capable of crushing bone. They domesticated wolves, creatures that hunt in coordinated packs, and turned them into companions. Not servants, not tools, but companions they treat as family members. Scholar Quinn Vell's glow fluctuated with confusion. That seems counterproductive to survival. It gets worse, Zeph'rak said cheerfully. They bond with creatures weighing over 500 kilograms that could crush them with a single kick. Images of humans riding horses flashed across the display. They climb onto these powerful beasts and somehow convince them to carry humans into battle. But surely, Ambassador Rothmar gurgled hopefully, they maintain some sense of self-preservation? Zeph'rak's laugh could have shattered crystal. Self-preservation? My dear Ambassador, humans have turned self-endangerment into recreational activities. The display shifted to show various human sporting events that looked like elaborate torture methods to the alien observers. They voluntarily run distances that would kill most species from exhaustion, calling it marathon running and treating it as entertainment is, Zeph'rak explained with barely contained glee. They scale vertical rock surfaces using nothing but their appendages and primitive equipment, risking death for what they call fun. Commander ThexLA stared at images of rock, climbing with the expression of someone watching their worst nightmares come to life. That cannot possibly serve any survival function. Oh, but it does, Zeph'rak replied knowingly. It demonstrates their programming for constant physical optimization. But wait, there is more. The display showed underwater scenes that made several delegates activate their emergency flotation devices. They deliberately submerged themselves in crushing aquatic environments, holding their breath until their oxygen reserves are nearly depleted, calling it deep sea diving. For research purposes? Scholar Quinville asked weakly. For pleasure, Zeph'rak announced with theatrical horror. Pure recreational self-endangerment. The display shifted again to show humans consuming various substances that made the alien health monitors in the chamber start beeping frantically. Their dietary choices provide even more evidence of artificial enhancement, Zeph'rak continued with scientific enthusiasm that bordered on mania. They voluntarily consume ethanol, a substance that would poison most carbon-based life forms, calling it alcohol and treating its consumption as social bonding. Ambassador Rothmar's translation device struggled before producing, "They poison themselves socially?" Regularly, Zeph'rak confirmed with obvious delight. They also consume plant compounds specifically evolved to cause pain and tissue damage, calling them spices and claiming they enhance flavor. Some humans actively seek out the most painful spices available, competing to see who can endure the most biological damage. The display showed humans consuming peppers while sweating and clearly suffering, yet appearing to enjoy the experience. Do not even get me started on their addiction to a plant-based stimulant called caffeine, Zeph'rak added. A substance that would cause cardiac arrest in most species, yet humans consume it daily to enhance their already unnaturally high performance levels. Commander Thexla was beginning to look genuinely disturbed. How do they adapt to different environments? Instantaneously, Zeph'rak replied with triumph. Within a single generation, humans can adapt to environments ranging from Arctic wastelands to desert extremes to high-altitude, low-oxygen conditions. Their bodies literally reshape themselves to optimize survival in any environment they encounter. The most disturbing revelation was yet to come, but perhaps most telling of all. Zeph'rak's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. Their social structures actively promote conflict and competition. They organize themselves into competing groups, engage in ritualized combat they call sports, and seem to thrive on the stress of constant challenge. Scholar Quinville's crystalline form dimmed considerably. They seek out conflict deliberately? They create it when none exists naturally, Zeph'rak confirmed ominously. No naturally evolved species would develop social systems based on perpetual competition. This is clearly programming designed to maintain peak combat readiness at all times. The council chamber fell silent, except for the increasingly frantic beeping of various life support systems as the implications sank in. Zeph'rak allowed the silence to stretch until it became uncomfortable, then clapped his tentacles together with the satisfaction of someone about to deliver a killing blow to an already defeated opponent. But all of this, he announced with the dramatic timing of a seasoned performer, all of this pales in comparison to what I consider the definitive proof of human artificial enhancement. The holographic display shifted to show images that made several council members immediately check their own life support systems. Space exploration, he declared with the reverence usually reserved for discussing cosmic horrors. These creatures voluntarily seal themselves inside metal containers barely larger than their own bodies and launch themselves into the vacuum of space. Commander Thexla, who had commanded warships across 3 sectors, stared at the images of human spacecraft with obvious bewilderment. Those look like missiles with windows. Precisely. Zeph'rak's eye stalks practically vibrated with excitement. No sane species would design transportation that resembles artillery shells, yet humans climb inside these death traps willingly. They call them rockets and treat riding explosions into space as routine transportation. The display showed the cramped interiors of human spacecraft, and Ambassador Rothmar's gurgling took on a distinctly nauseous quality. The survival margins appear minimal. Minimal? Zeph'rak laughed with the kind of mirth that suggested someone had completely lost touch with reality. These vessels operate on the principle that everything that can go wrong probably will, and humans have decided this is an acceptable risk for the privilege of floating in deadly vacuum surrounded by radiation that would sterilize most life forms. Scholar Quinville's glow had dimmed to barely perceptible levels. Surely they only venture to nearby celestial bodies for essential resources. Oh, my crystalline colleague, Zeph'rak's voice dripped with mock sympathy. They build permanent habitats in places where no rational being would establish a research station, let alone attempt to live. The display showed images of space stations that looked like elaborate suicide machines held together by hope and engineering stubbornness. They construct these orbital habitats where a single structural failure means instant death for everyone aboard, he continued with obvious glee. They live there for months at a time, conducting what they call experiments while floating in an environment that is actively trying to kill them every second of every day. The images shifted to show Mars, its red surface looking particularly hostile under Zeph'rak's presentation lighting. But wait, there is more. While their homeworld continues its relentless attempts to destroy them through geological violence, atmospheric warfare, and biological hostility, humans have decided to establish colonies on other worlds that are even more deadly. Commander Thexla leaned forward with the expression of someone watching a disaster unfold in slow motion. That red planet looks completely lifeless. It is, Zeph'rak confirmed cheerfully. No atmosphere worth mentioning, temperatures that would freeze most biological processes, radiation levels that would be lethal to unprotected organic matter, and dust storms that can engulf entire continents. The logical response would be to avoid such a place entirely. But humans are not logical, scholar Quinvell stated with dawning horror. Exactly. Zeph'rak's tentacles writhed with academic ecstasy. They see a planet that represents death in nearly every conceivable form and think, perfect, let us build cities there. They are currently planning permanent settlements on this wasteland while their own planet continues trying to kill them through earthquakes, hurricanes, and volcanic eruptions. The display shifted again to show deep space probe trajectories extending far beyond the solar system, and the council members collectively held their breath. And if establishing colonies on dead worlds were not evidence enough, Zeph'rak continued with building excitement. They have launched exploratory vessels beyond their own solar system. They are actively seeking out additional hostile environments to explore, as if their current selection of death worlds were insufficient for their needs. Ambassador Rothmar's translation device produced a sound that could best be described as electronic whimpering. They are spreading beyond their containment system? Containment system? Zeph'rak repeated with delighted realization. Yes, that is exactly what their solar system must be. It's a containment system designed to keep these biological weapons isolated until they were ready for deployment. The horrible implications hung in the air like toxic gas. The evidence is overwhelming, Zeph'rak announced with finality. No naturally evolved species would voluntarily enter vacuum-sealed death traps, establish colonies on lifeless worlds, or explore beyond their own solar system while their homeworld actively attempts genocide. These behaviors can only be explained by artificial programming designed to create the ultimate exploration and colonization force. Commander Thexla's 6 arms had gone completely limp. We are looking at an invasion force that does not even realize it is an invasion force. Worse, Zeph'rak replied ominously. We are looking at an invasion force that thinks space exploration is fun. The chamber's main entrance suddenly hissed open with a sharp pneumatic wheeze, interrupting Zeph'rak mid-gesture. Every head, eye stalk, sensory appendage, and a stand. Crystalline detection surface turned toward the doorway as a figure strode in with the kind of casual confidence that suggested either supreme authority or complete ignorance of the surrounding tension. Sorry I'm late, everyone, called out a distinctly human voice with cheerful nonchalance. Had a bit of shuttle trouble on the way over. Ambassador Lisa Reeves, Earth's representative to the Galactic Council, walked into the chamber like she was entering a coffee shop, rather than the most secure diplomatic facility in 3 sectors. Her hair was slightly disheveled, her diplomatic uniform had what appeared to be scorch marks, and she was carrying a steaming cup of something that made the atmospheric sensors start beeping warnings. Shuttle trouble? Commander Thexla managed to croak, her 6 arms involuntarily reaching for weapons that were not there. Oh, nothing serious, Lisa replied with a dismissive wave, settling into her designated chair with practiced ease. Lost primary engines about 30,000 kilometers out, had to bring her in on backup thrusters and emergency retro rockets. It's a bit of a bumpy landing. Actually went through 2 landing strips before we stopped sliding. She paused to sip her beverage, completely oblivious to the horrified stares. But hey, any landing you can walk away from, right? The silence that followed could have been measured in geological epochs. Zeph'rak's tentacles had frozen mid-gesture, his eye stalks locked onto this living example of everything he had just been describing. You survived a catastrophic propulsion failure and orbital re-entry? Catastrophic? Lisa laughed with genuine amusement. Dr. Zeph'rak, right? I have read your papers, by the way, fascinating stuff. But no, that was barely worth mentioning in the incident report. Catastrophic would have been if we had lost life support or hit the mountain range. Scholar Quinn-Vell's crystalline form was flickering so rapidly it resembled a strobe light. You consider that a minor incident? Well, sure, Lisa replied, taking another sip of her drink. I mean, nobody got hurt, the shuttle is mostly repairable, and I made it here in time for the afternoon session. Speaking of which, what are we discussing today? She glanced around at the horrified faces with mild curiosity. Everyone looks a bit pale. Well, paler than usual. Is everything all right? Ambassador Rothmar's gurgling had taken on a distinctly hysterical quality that his translator was struggling to render into coherent speech. Zeph'rak began slowly, discussing human origins and the impossibility of your species evolving naturally on such a hostile world. Oh, Earth? Lisa's face brightened with what could only be described as fond nostalgia. Yeah, it is pretty nice, is not it? Great climate, beautiful scenery, plenty of biodiversity. We actually consider it one of our garden worlds. The phrase garden worlds hit the assembled council like a physical blow. Garden worlds? Commander Thexla whispered. Plural? Scholar Quinn-Vell added faintly. Oh sure, Lisa continued cheerfully, apparently unaware that she was systematically destroying everything the council thought they knew about reality. Earth is lovely, but some of our newer colonies have really spectacular environments. Kepler 438 billion has sulfur geysers that reach the stratosphere, and the atmospheric pressure on Gliese 667 CCC makes mountain climbing really interesting when you factor in the triple-star radiation. She paused to take another sip of her drink, which was now producing visible vapor that made the environmental sensors sound like they were having nervous breakdowns. Sorry, where are my manners? Lisa gestured with her cup. Anyone want some coffee? I brought my own blend this morning. It is only mildly spicy, just a hint of Carolina Reaper and ghost pepper extract for flavor. The offer of what was essentially liquid biological warfare hung in the air while every council member simultaneously activated their emergency air filtration systems. Lisa, completely oblivious to the panic she was causing, settled back in her chair with the relaxed posture of someone about to explain something perfectly obvious to a group of confused children. So, Dr. Zeph'rak, she began with the patient tone typically reserved for addressing particularly slow students, you think we are artificially enhanced super soldiers? She paused to chuckle, a sound that somehow made her seem even more terrifying to the assembled delegates. That is actually kind of flattering, but I am afraid you have got it backwards. Zeph'rak's tentacles twitched nervously. Backwards? Earth did not make us tough because someone designed us that way, Lisa explained with deadpan delivery that could have cut glass. Earth made us tough because everything on our planet spent millions of years actively trying to kill us, and we had to get creative about not dying. She took another sip of her volcanic coffee while the implications percolated through alien minds like acid through metal. See, when your planet regularly tries to shake you to death with earthquakes, drown you with floods, freeze you with ice ages, cook you with volcanic eruptions, poison you with toxic gases, and generally treat your entire species like an unwelcome house guest, you develop certain adaptations. Commander Thexla leaned forward with morbid fascination. Such as? Well, for starters, we learned that broken bones heal stronger because Earth kept breaking them, Lisa replied matter-of-factly. Our pain tolerance developed because Earth kept hurting us. Our temperature regulation improved because Earth kept trying to freeze or cook us. Our immune systems became overachievers because Earth kept trying to poison us with everything from bacteria to plant toxins. Scholar Quinvel's glow was now so dim it was barely visible. So what Dr. Zeph'rak interpreted as artificial enhancement was actually a natural selection with a really bad attitude. Lisa finished cheerfully. Earth basically spent 4 billion years being the worst possible roommate, so we evolved to deal with it. She gestured casually with her cup, sending wisps of pepper-scented steam into the air that made several council members activate their emergency oxygen supplies. The pack bonding thing? That happened because Earth has really big predators, and we figured out that making friends with some of them was easier than fighting all of them. The recreational risk-taking? Well, when your normal Tuesday includes dodging lightning strikes, volcanic ash, and predators with big teeth, you kind of recalibrate what constitutes dangerous fun. Ambassador Rothmar gurgled something that might have been a question about human children. Oh, the kids? Lisa's face lit up with parental pride. Yeah, human children are pretty resilient. They play games like tag where they chase each other at high speeds, hide and seek, which is basically predator evasion training, and king of the hill, which is small-scale territorial warfare. We consider it healthy social development. The council members exchanged glances that clearly communicated they were reconsidering everything they thought they knew about child development. Then there are the team sports, Lisa continued with obvious enthusiasm. Football involves armored humans colliding at high velocity while fighting over territory. Hockey combines high-speed movement with potential for combat using sticks. Rugby is basically organized violence with minimal protective equipment. Great fun for the whole family. Zeph'rak made a sound that his translation device rendered as computational error. And the hobbies. Lisa added with growing excitement. Oh, the hobbies are wonderful. Rock climbing teaches you to hang from cliffs by your fingertips. Scuba diving lets you explore underwater environments that will kill you if your equipment fails. Skydiving involves jumping out of perfectly functional aircraft for entertainment. Martial arts are formalized combat training that people do for stress relief. She paused to take another sip of her weaponized beverage. Honestly, when you grow up on a planet that treats existence as an extreme sport, you tend to develop a pretty relaxed attitude about risk management. Lisa noticed the shell-shocked expressions around the chamber and set down her coffee cup with a gentle clink that somehow sounded ominous in the sudden silence. You know what? She said with the tone of someone who had just made a decision that would probably traumatize everyone present. I can see you are still having trouble believing humans are completely natural. How about I demonstrate some basic human capabilities? The phrase basic human capabilities sent a wave of terror through the council that was almost visible. That will not be necessary, Commander Thexela said quickly, her 6 arms raised in what was clearly a surrender gesture. Oh, but I insist, Lisa replied with cheerful determination. She reached into her diplomatic bag and pulled out what appeared to be a standard emergency nutrition packet. Mind if I have a snack? Shuttle crashes always make me hungry. Before anyone could object, she tore open the packet and downed its contents in one gulp. The emergency ration was designed to sustain any council species for 3 days in crisis situations, contained enough concentrated nutrients to power a small spacecraft, and tasted like liquefied misery mixed with industrial solvent. Lisa smacked her lips thoughtfully. A bit bland, but not bad. Kind of reminds me of my college cafeteria food. Scholar Quinvel's crystalline form flickered so rapidly it was producing its own light show. That was a week's worth of emergency sustenance. Really? Lisa looked genuinely surprised. No wonder I am still a bit hungry. She stood up and stretched, her joints making small popping sounds that caused several council members to flinch. Mind if I work out the shuttle crash kinks? Without waiting for permission, she dropped to the floor and began doing push-ups with the casual ease of someone performing basic maintenance on their own body. After 20 repetitions, she switched to sit-ups, then proceeded to demonstrate what humans call jumping jacks. A form of coordinated movement that looked like ritualized preparation for combat. "There we go," she said, not even breathing hard as she returned to her seat. "Much better. Sorry about that, I get stiff when I sit too long." Ambassador Rothmar's gurgling had taken on the desperate quality of someone drowning in disbelief. "You just consumed concentrated nutrition designed for emergency survival and then performed physical conditioning exercises." "Well, yeah," Lisa replied with a shrug. "I mean, I am not even in good shape. I have a desk job, for crying out loud. I probably could not run a marathon in under 4 hours anymore." The phrase "under 4 hours" caused Commander Thexla to make a choking sound. "If you really want to see impressive human physical performance," Lisa continued conversationally, "you should meet my nephew Tommy. He is 12 and just started doing parkour. Kid can scale a 3-story building in about 30 seconds. At the mention of human children casually defying gravity for entertainment, Scholar Quinvel's light finally went out completely, and the crystalline being collapsed with a sound like wind chimes falling downstairs. "Oh dear," Lisa said with mild concern. "Is Scholar Quinvel all right? Should I call for medical assistance?" Ambassador Rothmar joined his crystalline colleague in unconsciousness, his translation device emitting a final electronic wheeze before going silent. Commander Thexla was gripping her chair with all 6 arms, her knuckles white with strain. "Please," she whispered, "no more demonstrations." Dr. Zeph'rak sat motionless for several long moments, his tentacles drooping like deflated balloons as the fundamental assumptions of his entire academic career crumbled around him like a house of cards in a hurricane. His 7 spectacles had fogged over, and his eye stalks moved in slow, confused circles as if trying to process information that simply did not compute. "So," he said finally, his voice carrying the hollow tone of someone whose universe had just been turned inside out, "humans are not artificially enhanced super soldiers created by advanced aliens and abandoned on a death world." "Nope," Lisa confirmed cheerfully, apparently unaware that she had just committed scientific genocide against an entire field of xenobiology. Instead, Commander Thexla continued slowly, as if speaking the words might make them less impossible. "Humans are the natural result of a death world that spent millions of years trying to kill them." "Pretty much," Lisa agreed, finishing the last of her pepper-laced coffee. "Earth did not make us tough because someone programmed us. Earth made us tough because we had to get tough, or get dead, and we chose tough." The remaining conscious council members sat in stunned silence as the implications settled in like sediment in a disturbed pond. "You know," Lisa said conversationally, "if you ever want to visit Earth and see for yourselves, you are always welcome. I mean, assuming you think you can handle it." She paused thoughtfully. "We would probably want to start you off somewhere easy, like the Antarctic research stations or maybe one of the volcanic monitoring outposts." Commander Thexla made a sound that suggested she would rather gargle with molten metal than visit Earth voluntarily. "Oh, speaking of which," Lisa said, glancing at her timepiece with the casual air of someone remembering a grocery list, "I need to leave a bit early today. I promised my daughter Emma I would help her with a school project, and I do not want to be late." "School project?" Zeph'rak asked with the tone of someone who no longer trusted the universe to make sense. "Volcano climbing," Lisa replied matter-of-factly as she gathered her things. "She is doing a geology report on active lava flows, and we are planning to collect some samples from Mount Kilauea this weekend. Should be fun, assuming the weather holds up and the eruption pattern stays predictable." She stood up, straightened her scorched diplomatic uniform, and headed toward the door with the satisfied air of someone who had just cleared up a simple misunderstanding. "Anyway, great meeting everyone. Same time next week?" As the door closed behind her, the remaining conscious council members sat in absolute silence, finally understanding that they had been thinking about the human-death world relationship completely backwards. It was not that humans had conquered death worlds. Death worlds had created humans. And that was somehow infinitely more terrifying.